Can you believe the interesting history behind the Times Square ball drop? Each year, people go to Times Square for one of the most iconic moments of the season. And each year, people are also packed in like sardines in Times Square to enjoy the celebration. Even though that's the case, millions of people still arrived in New York City to experience the celebration. If you are not from the US or familiar with the ball drop, it occurs every year on New Year's Eve starting at 11:59 p.m. to count down to the new year. The ball descends down on a specially designed flagpole until it hits the bottom at midnight. The ball currently sits atop One Times Square and has been part of the New York and Nation celebration for decades. In this video, we are going to discuss the history of the famous ball drop, how it's changed over the years, and what the future may hold. Let's take a deep dive into this New Year's celebration. The first ever official Times Square New Year's celebration took place on December 31st, 1904. It would be held by New York Times owner Adolph Ochs, who was celebrating the opening of the new headquarters for the New York Times. The fireworks show would take place on the southern roof to welcome in 1905. The event would host close to 200,000 people and would become the new it place to be in New York on New Year's Eve. After the success of the first event, it would be decided to continue hosting a New Year's Eve fireworks show. However, they decided after a few years they wanted to add a new dynamic. At this moment, Walter Palmer, chief electrician, would come up with the idea of a Times Square ball. The team would work with Art Craft Strauss to construct a ball to utilize in the new event. The ball would be built out of iron and wood, with illumination and incandescent light bulbs. The original ball weighed over 700 pounds and measured over 5 feet. Originally, the ball would be lifted by a rope, pulled by 6 men. This ball would begin being dropped 10 seconds before midnight and would hit the roof of the building. The circle would be complete, lighting the 5-foot signs on both sides of the building, triggering a fireworks show. The first year the event would be held with the new ball would be New Year's Eve 1907, celebrating the start of 1908. That original ball would be continued to be dropped from that location even after New York Times left the area in 1913. The ball would finally get a new design and new build at the end of the 1919 year. The reason behind switching of the balls would be due to the size of the original. The new ball would be around 300 pounds less and be less physically demanding. The event would continue with great success and grow. The lessened physical demands of the new ball made the spectacular much easier. However, the event would be placed on a hiatus during World War II. Specifically, this would be on New Year's 1943 and 1944 due to wartime lighting restrictions. Instead of a large celebration, people gathered in a moment of silence with church bells playing in the background. For the 1955-56 celebration, a new ball would be needed. This time, the new ball would be significantly lighter, weighing around only 150 pounds. The event would essentially stay status quo over the years until we hit the 1970s, where we began to see big changes. The first new addition would be televising the ball drop on the Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve on December 31st, 1972. Now, it is important to note that Dick Clark was not the first person to broadcast a New Year's Eve show. In fact, Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadian Band had hosted a show in the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City starting in 1929. But this was the first show to be broadcasted directly from New York's Times Square to celebrate New Year's Eve. It was actually taking people watching the show from their living room into New York City to celebrate New Year's Eve. The first 2 years of the show would be on NBC before ABC would take over the coverage. What made the Dick Clark show so unique was the fact that it was actually hosted from Times Square with the focus on the ball drop. It was a concept that ABC would showcase with various musical acts, comedies, and feel-good stories. And with the young and popular Dick Clark, it was a perfect combination. After the death of Guy Lombardo, the ratings would skyrocket for this show, and it became part of American culture. This show also helped propel the idea of counting down to the new year, with the first official countdown being in 1979 to celebrate the 1980 year. The 1980s and 90s would bring some more unique changes to the event. For example, the 1981 to 1982 event would have the ball turned into an apple in honor of the city's nickname. This would tie into the I Love New York marketing campaign that the city was pushing during that time period. In honor of the leap second for the 1987 to 1988 year, they hosted a light show during this 61-second drop. In 1990 to 1991, they would change the lights to red, white, and blue to honor the troops for Operation Desert Shield. The 1996 season would bring computerized lighting to better prepare the ball for the new millennium, as well as to make things much easier in case there's ever a glitch. Interestingly enough, however, the first year utilizing the computerized lighting system, there would actually be a glitch, which would cause the ball to pause on its way down. Even though this ball was updated and computerized, they would decide to make a new ball for the year 2000. The new ball would be constructed by Waterford Crystal. The campaign would be marketed as NYC 2000, with many big sponsors like Discover Card and Panasonic. The increase in technology allowed for the balls to once again become bigger. This new ball would be over 6 feet in diameter, weighing over 1,000 pounds, with over 600 halogen light bulbs and 500 crystal triangle panes. This would be an absolute beauty of a new ball. The panels were also inscribed with the words hope and phrases relating to hope for the new millennium. After the 9/11 attacks, there would be much more precautions for the event. The theme of that year's event would be a somber celebration, a hope for healing, in honor of those who lost their lives in the attacks. They would also engrave the names of the countries, emergency organizations, and flights that had casualties taken from the attacks. This would be one of the largest events held in New York City after the 9/11 attacks. The city had decided to go on with the celebration to showcase the American spirit and to show how strong the city was. For this year's celebration, as it was more somber, they would ring out church bells as they hoisted the ball. There would be over 7,000 police officers working the event, and it looked very different from previous celebrations. The ball was taken as a symbol of America and the American strength. For the 2008 year, they would celebrate the 100-year anniversary. This time, they would get a new ball, once again manufactured by Waterford Crystal, that weighed over 1,000 pounds. This time, they used LED lamps that were provided by Philips that could produce over 16,000 different colors. It would also be, once again, all computerized. But what made this ball's technology unique is the fact that the lighting was very energy efficient. Even though this ball was fantastic, for the 2009 season, they would introduce a similar ball, but much larger. This new ball weighed over 11,000 pounds and was 12 feet in diameter. It would also have 32,000 LED lamps. The ball would also be completely waterproof. In honor of that 100th celebration, however, that one-time use ball for 2008 was moved to the Times Square Visitor Center for all to see for future events. Over the years, the ball and celebration has gone through various changes due to the theme, color, and elements. Most notably in 2020 and 21 year, due to the COVID pandemic, the festivities were closed to the general public. They would invite families of first responders and essential workers to New York City for the event. The theme would be to support and love those essential workers. In the past decades, we have seen various different balls that have been used, with various different TV hosts and crowd sizes. Though there have been huge changes and developments over the year, one thing remains true. This has been one of the most historic and important events in America's society. Whether during World War II, 9/11, or the COVID-19 pandemic, this event has always been looked at. Across the world, we have been looked at as Americans to celebrate the new year. Has the ball drop been part of your life? Do you watch this New Year's Eve celebration each year? Have you ever attended the event in person? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and Happy New Year's from Believable Truths.